So we're in the car today, a little bit of a different setting for the YouTube video, but we're speaking about how you can change so fast that people do not recognize you. So let's get into it. The first rule to this, the first thing that I want you to consider and think about is the fact that you can. People do not actually have the awareness or know or believe that you can change pretty much every moment in time. You have the choice to change, but without the awareness or the belief that you can, you're not going to be able to do it. So the first thing that I want you to soak in and solidify as a belief: I can change when I want. I can change in every moment in time. I have the ability to make a choice to be a different person. That's what I want you to know and solidify as a belief before we start. So that's rule number one. The second thing, in the title of this video speaks about so fast, do it in a quick time. What is time? I want you to think about this. If you've never thought about this, this might blow your mind or go against everything that you've ever thought before. But time is a man-made construct. It's been made up. It's been made up to make you believe that things happen in a linear fashion. A to B, B to C, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, you need to go in stages. But I'm going to introduce a little concept to you that you might have heard before, but if you haven't, again, it's essentially collapsing time. So how can you go from number 1 to number 5 without having to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So this is the equivalent, if we make this analogy clear to you and how you can apply it to like changing your life. There's a version of you that might be at stage 5, for example, and you're at stage 1 right now. And you think you need to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously, there's truth to that you need to go through a process to become the version of yourself. But I want to introduce you to a concept that's going to allow you to essentially start being that version of you that's at number 5 now. You essentially collapse time and do not need to do it in a linear fashion. So how does this work, Kyle? What the fuck are you actually talking about? Using your imagination, using visualization as a tool, is a way that you can do this. You can start being the version of you that you want to be in, this reality that you want, the success that you want. You can start to experiencing being them now without actually changing your physical life. So we're going to speak about visualization, and this is nothing to do with the external reality. I want you to, right now, before we go into this, detach from anything that you can do physically externally, because essentially that's where most people go wrong, is they believe that they need to work really hard and change all of these things in their external world to change their life. But the change happens internally first, and I'm going to give you insight into using visualization as a tool, using your imagination as a tool to make that happen fucking fast, really quick. So let's speak about visualization, and it's not a visualization masterclass. This is just part of the whole change your life so quick. So the first thing that you want to think about, and actually before we even talk about visualization, let's think about what needs to happen first. First, there needs to be awareness around who the version of you is that you want to be. Who the version of you is that has the success. Who is that person? You need to become so detailed, so dialed in with who they are, how they think, how they feel, how they act, what they do when they wake up in the morning, what does their life look like, maybe down to details as what car do they drive, how do they spend their time. That's the details and the detail you need to have on the version of you that you're essentially wanting to become, because changing your life quick is not about changing your life and it's about changing who you are. So first is awareness around who that person is. So you need to, if you're taking notes, hopefully you are with this video, how does this person think? How do they feel? What do they do when they wake up in the morning? How do they spend their time? What impact do they have on the world? What do they do? Like, what is this? Who's this person? What does their life look like? That's step one. Awareness around that. That's where you start. Because you can't use visualization if you don't know who you want to become, if you don't know what the life is that you want, right? So that's step one, is awareness around that. Once that's super, super clear, you can start to use your imagination to see yourself as that version of yourself. So you can start to see yourself in that life. You can start to imagine what that life would be. And this is when you're going to start to experience the version of you that has the success, experience the life that you want without actually having that life physically. And it's all happening inside your mind. So we're not going to go deep into visualization and the details of it, but essentially what will happen, you're going to get in, when you're using visualization, you're going to get into a very relaxed state, and we can speak about the different brainwaves, getting into theta brainwaves, a really relaxed state. You can do more research, and I'll probably be putting content out that is going to go deeper into visualization, because without giving anything away, I'm going to be building a course, content, things that you can use and tap into to actually use this as a skill and a tool in your life. But essentially what you're going to do is get into a really relaxed state. When you're in that relaxed state, you're going to, with this clear picture and clear idea of who you want to be, what their life looks like, you're going to start to vividly imagine that life, whether it's waking up in the morning, driving the car that they have. Maybe you're standing and you're taking a presentation in front of a group of people as that version of you that has that life. When you start to do this, when you start to vividly imagine the life that you want, being the version of yourself that has that life, your brain, as long as it's a vivid imagination, your brain does not know the difference between that imagination and that vivid imagination and real life. And if you can vividly imagine the life that you want, being the version of you that has what you want, has the success, essentially you're watching this video because you're like, right, how do I change my life so quick? That will hopefully, I think, be in the direction of having success, or being a version of you that has a better life. So when you start to imagine this and you start to see it in your mind, your brain actually doesn't know the difference between what's real life and what's imagination. So therefore, your brain will start to emotionally experience this as if it's actually happening in your physical life, but it's happening inside your mind. This has happened internally. And what starts to happen, there's a thing called neuroplasticity, and I've spoken about it in my last couple of YouTube videos. But neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to form new pathways. Here's a quick analogy of what forming new pathways is like, right? Imagine there is a park on the other side of woods, and to get to that park, you choose to take a different route. You choose to walk through the woods, through a route that you would not usually take. And the first time you go through that path, it's really hard to get through. You're climbing over trees, branches, leaves, these kind of things. But the more you take that same route, you start to create a rut in the ground. You start to create this clear path. The path starts to get wider, more visible, more prominent. And essentially, that's what's happening, that path that you're creating by walking through the woods, that's what's happening when you're vividly imagining being that version of you, being in that life. Your brain's creating a pathway, like the rut in the ground, a pathway associated with that life that you want. And because it doesn't know that it's not real life and it thinks it's real life, you're going to start to form pathways that's aligned with being that version of yourself. So just by imagining vividly being that version of you, you're creating memories that are attached to having that reality, having that life. And you're going to start to rewire your mind. You're going to start to rewire your brain and create pathways that is aligned with being that version of you that is in this imagination. So without you going and changing your life physically, without you going to change your external environment and physically taking action, you're becoming a different version of yourself now, just by using your mind and imagination. And the more you do this, like the more you walk through the woods, you're creating this pathway and it's getting stronger and stronger. You're getting more pathways that are essentially aligned with the version of you that you want to become. So as I said, without even changing your external life and environment and physical actions, you're starting to wire your brain to become a different version of you. And again, without going into the science of it, the different parts of your brain that are getting rewired here, the subconscious and the limbic system and the different parts of your brain, right? We're going to just keep it baseline. This is, by experiencing this reality, you're actually starting to rewire your brain, but you're starting to plant seeds and rewire your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is what controls 95% of your actions, habits, and behaviors. And this is various different parts of your brain that we're not going to go into the specifics because you don't really care about that right now. Again, I can do more videos about it and go into the deep science of it. But if 95% of your subconscious mind if 95% of your actions are controlled by your subconscious mind, and you, by experiencing this reality in your vivid imagination, start to change how your subconscious mind operates, start to change who you are at a subconscious level, then you're going to start to influence, just by imagining, your actions, habits, and behaviors. You're going to start influencing how you behave. You're going to start influencing that 95%. And that's going to start influencing the outcomes of your life, because ultimately how you behave drives the outcomes in your life. So just, like, again, this is how we're collapsing time. Just by you using imagination, firstly getting clear on who you want to be, what their life looks like, but by you using imagination and visualization, you're starting to rewire your brain as someone that has the life that you want, which is potentially a year away, 2 years away, 5 years away in linear time. Like, you won't have the dream car, you won't have millions of pounds, you won't have that desired reality that you're imagining in the next month. It might take you a year or 2 years, but you're imagining it now, you're experiencing it now, you're wiring your brain to be that version of yourself now, and that's how you're collapsing time. You're becoming that version of yourself now that might be 3 years away in reality, but you're experiencing that reality now using your imagination. So you're starting to shift who you are at a subconscious level by using your mind, by using imagination, by forming these new pathways. And the repetition of this, so imagine you are using a tool like visualization and your imagination consistently and repetitively. That repetition is actually going to start making your brain recognize this experience as familiar. It's going to actually start recognizing this experience as something that is familiar to you, which is going to start to make it feel normal. It's going to start making it feel like it's you. You're going to start to rewire your nervous system to feel familiar with that reality. So that means that taking actions that align with moving towards there starts to feel normal. It starts to feel part of who you are rather than this resistance that you'll feel. You start to feel comfortable, and actually you start to feel like you're almost being drove towards taking actions that take you towards that life, because you're feeling that life from there. You're not operating from where you are now. You're operating in your mind and rewiring your brain from that life that you want. Again, that might be 2 years away in linear time, but you're collapsing time by being able to experience it now using your imagination. And the more you emotionally experience this life, there's another part of your brain, and we've not really, again, we just call it subconscious, but there's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system. So when you're saying change your life so fast, essentially your life is created based on your perception and how you see things. By you vividly imagining the life that you want, being the version of you that has a success, you're going to start, essentially you're going to start telling your brain that that life is important. Because as you emotionally experience it, your brain will go, oh cool, if they consistently feel that, they consistently experience that, or if you consistently experience that, you consistently feel that, that must mean that it's important. So your brain's going to give you more of that. It's going to show you more of that. So this part of your brain called the reticular activating system is going to filter reality to show you more of what you're imagining and seeing. So give you a quick example. This part of your brain, reticular activating system, imagine you get a new car, or you're looking at a new car, you're shopping for a new car. I guarantee you've experienced this where all you can then see is that car that you're going to get. Why? Because you've imagined yourself in the car. That car's became something that's important to you. You've got some emotion attached to the car, so it's maybe excitement or gratitude, or you're looking forward to having the car. So your brain is experiencing this imagination of you getting the car because you've been doing this in your mind. And because you're emotionally connected to it and that's deemed as important to you, your brain filters reality to see it. So that's why you keep seeing this car. But ultimately, this is how you start to use your mind to change your reality so fucking fast, is because when you have this emotional experience and this imagination, you're going to start to see opportunities. You're going to start to see the path lighting up that will take you towards that life that you want, the thing that you've emotionally tagged and the things that you've experienced in your mind. You're going to start to see reality showing you ways to move towards it. So you're going to start to change your life, change your reality so fast just by using your mind. Just by becoming clear on who it is you want to be. So there's a car driving past, because we're up in the middle of fucking nowhere. But just by getting clear on who you want to be, getting clear on what that life looks like, and by experiencing it in your mind, using your imagination, you're going to start to rewire your brain to filter reality to see ways to move towards that. And this is how life starts to change really fucking fast. Because instead of you, and this is where people, again, I mentioned it slightly, but this is why people get fucking fucked, right? And this is why you might get fucked. Because you'll do this, and you'll do the imagination, and you'll do the visualization, and you'll do these things, and you'll feel really good about it, and guess what happens? You come out of this imagination, you come out of the visualization, and nothing has changed externally. Your bank hasn't changed, the people you're around hasn't changed, you've not got the new car yet, you've not got the new house, you've not got the job, you've not got the life externally. But soak this in. 99.9%, this has been shown by science, 99.9% of reality is unseen. We can't see it. We cannot see it. So that means that 0.0, because you can say 0.003, 0.001, I've seen it differently wrote, but roughly 0.001 of reality is seen by the eyeballs, right? The 3D, the physical world that we see is that tiny little part. But this is why, so essentially this is why people fall off, because when things don't change in that 0.001%, they think, well, it must be bullshit. I must not be moving forward. Things must not be changing because guess what? My bank still says this and this still, and they're basing that off of that. But this is where you need to be aware of the unseen part of reality. You need to be tapped into things that you can't see, your imagination. You need to have faith in things that you cannot see at this point. You cannot let external reality, this 3D world, throw you off and convince you that things aren't moving forward. That's how people sabotage themselves. If this 3D part is only 0.01, then you could argue that this 3D world is an illusion. It's an illusion that keeps people trapped because they're consistently losing faith, losing the connection to the life that they want, losing faith in these visualizations, and they're going against it because their physical reality isn't showing them what they ideally want. But this is where a bit of delusion comes in. This is where the faith comes in. You need to have faith in delusion that that reality you want does exist, even if you can't see it right now. And if you can hold on to this faith, you can act with the faith. If you can feed the faith and starve the doubt, you can be connected to this life in your mind and you can take the actions to move towards it, regardless if your physical life isn't reflecting that life right now. If you can do that and you can keep moving forward, you're going to get big results. And it will happen much quicker than most people even think it can. The results will come into your life much quicker. But the reason why people get fucked is because that external life doesn't change super quick. Well, it's not going to. You're not going to make millions of pounds tomorrow. It might take you 3 years. But as long as you are connected and using things like the visualization, using things that are going to help you essentially rewire your brain to become that version of yourself in 5 years' time now, if you use these tools, things will happen quicker. You will rewire your identity and who you are much quicker, and your life will change. You'll see opportunities that will align with that new identity that you're installing through the imagination. But don't fall victim to this illusion that we call life, this external 3D world, because that's why people get fucked. So to recap the video so far, so you become super clear on who that version is. You can start to use things like visualization, your imagination, to tap into experiencing that emotionally, which at a subconscious level is going to be rewiring your mind to align with that identity, because your self-image and how you see yourself, the self-concept, that is constructed and made up of all of your past experiences, all the things that you've emotionally experienced. So by you using this visualization and imagination, you're going to be able to rewrite and update that self-image, which ultimately drives your behaviors, because how you see yourself is how you see the world. How you see the world is then how you interact with it, and ultimately that will dictate your behavior. So with Collapse Time, we've understood that you can become that version of yourself now using your imagination, which ultimately allows you to rewire your brain, filter reality to move towards it in a much quicker way. But there's a couple of things that I want to mention that are more focused on your external environment, right? Because these are things that will put you back into these states, because I understand that what I've just spoke about is very, very valid and definitely applicable. But there's things that right now you also need to be considerate of, right? Okay, so thinking about the people you're around, so your environment, the people you're around when it comes to shifting into this new state, this new version of you, the people you're around is super important. If the people you're around are consistently holding you to your old self, they're consistently reminding you of who you used to be, it's going to reinforce you doing that to yourself as well. What this is about is becoming a new version of you. That's how you change your life so quick. It's changing who you are. It's not going out and buying a different car and buying a different house. It's changing who you are. So for you to get really, really attached to this new version, this future self, yes, the visualization, imaginations are powerful tools, but you need to start to audit your environment. Who are you around? Is there anyone around you in your life right now that is holding you to your old self, that are reminding you of who you used to be? Because if we're trying to shift who we are, we also need to shift who we're around. And one thing that I get said to me years ago, and I'm only 25 in a month or two, If you can't change the people you're around, change the people you're around, because ultimately your environment and who you're around is going to dictate a huge part of how you behave. And if you're trying to be a new version of you and there's people like, again, holding you to your old self, you're going to keep playing old stories in your head and you're never going to truly move forward. The stage that you want to get to, and I made a video on mastering your inner voice, which will help with you if you go and watch that. When these old stories come in, because you're making this shift, you're going to use this imagination, visualization, you're going to start becoming clear in the life that you want, who you want to become. You're going to start to align your physical actions as well with what they do, right? How do they behave? What are their habits? When you start to think about that, you're going to start to adopt these things. We'll speak a little bit about that in a little second, right? But as you're doing it, you're going to get old stories coming up. You're going to get the old self coming up. You're going to get, again, people around you reminding you who you used to be. It's your job to observe that. So observe the old story that comes up and detach from it. Observe and detach. If you can get to a place where you're observing those old stories like, oh, you can't do that, you used to be this person. If you can get to a point where you're taking a step back and you're observing that and detaching from that old story, you're going to be in control. Because you're then going to, like I spoke about in the Master Your Inner Voice video, you're going to be able to choose who to be. If you take that voice seriously, if you take that old story seriously, you're going to start to listen to it, getting emotionally involved in it, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to start emotionally experiencing that old self. What's that doing? It's firing and wiring those old pathways that are connected to the old identity. It's taking you back. It's taking you back in time. So the people you're around, if they keep triggering that, if they keep holding you to your old self, you need to be able to change that. You need to get rid of those people. You need to get rid of your things in your environment that are holding you to that. And when we're talking about environment as well, and the reason why I mention environment as another key thing is because your environment, for the most part, will dictate your instinctual behavior. We have a part of our brain, the mammalian brain, the limbic system, that it comes from like tribal days, back in the day, thousands of years ago. And our environment was a big key part in how we behaved. So if your environment is triggering old habits, old patterns, there's people around you holding to your old self, you're not going to be able to fully make this shift or maintain the shift. Because you can have a shift. You can have a powerful experience. You can have an outer body experience, have a psychedelic experience, get full of mushrooms, full of DMT, ayahuasca, something like that. But if you go back into your old environment, because we're instinctual, we're habitual creatures, you're going to be triggered back into that old behavior at some point. So the environment is very important. And again, it could be the places that you go to as well. It could be the clothes that you're wearing. These different things, clothes that you're wearing is that environment. I mean, it's your clothes, it's your wardrobe. If you go into your wardrobe and you see the same fucking hoodies you've seen for 5 years, that's your old self. Imagine you've got a row of hoodies that you've wore for the last 5 years, and for the last 5 years you've been depressed, you've always wore your hood up. So you put this old costume on, this old hoodie on, that essentially is anchoring you to your old self. So you want to start changing these things so you can really step into that new identity. So when we spoke about the actions and habits, and this is a bit of a rant, a bit of a ramble. There's no script to this video, but as I'm talking, it's like I have things that I've pre-thought about speaking about. But when it comes to actually getting the result, right? So we spoke about collapse in time using imagination. When you're starting to, because we live in a physical life, we're not just living in the quantum realm and the unseen reality, right? We are in a physical life. When it comes to what do you then do physically, you want to start aligning your actions and your habits. But you want to start thinking, right, what habits, what actions can I take that are going to make success a byproduct? What physical things, what actions can I take that will make success a byproduct? You don't want to just aim for success. You want to aim for the things that are going to make success a byproduct. So, and what this is not just I'm going to take those actions. I'm going to do those things. You need to start from your identity. You're going to be that guy. And that guy does X, Y, Z. So let me give you the fitness example. I'm going to be fit. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to be that version of myself that is strong, lean, fit, healthy, happy. Cool. What do I need to do for me to be that person? What does that person do? Because this is what you're doing, is you're outlining the version of yourself, but I'm just using a fitness example. I'm going to be healthy. Eat clean. Go to the gym. Sleep well. Supplements. Manage my stress. Hydrate. Routine. You get the idea. You want to be that version, so you then start thinking about, cool, in order to be them, What do I then do? What are the habits? What are the routines? What are the actions? It's a being thing. It's an identity thing. You need to tie the habits that you're doing to an identity. I am someone who goes to the gym. I am strong and healthy, fit and happy. Cool. As part of that identity, I do all these actions. But it's a to be thing. It's a being. It's a identity shift that happens that causes these actions. Because if you're someone that is just sitting, this angle's a bit awkward. Might change the way I do this next time. But if it's just a case of doing something, anyone can go to a gym and do it. Anyone can go to the gym and smash a workout. But to be the guy that's doing fitness, to be the guy that is into fitness and is this guy that is surrounded by health and happiness, you've got a whole list of habits that you're going to end up carrying out because of your identity, because of who you are. So it needs to be, who am I? There was the first point, was the awareness. And it's a being, it's coming off the back of being that version of yourself. So that's what these actions and habits are. It's off the back of who you are, who you're choosing to be. So ultimately, that's, again, when you're thinking about getting the result in your physical life, that's how you do it. That's what you want to start aligning with, the identity of that person, right? So really good. Very, very good. Regarding, obviously, this video, there's not been scripted at all. There's no real, like, thought out, like, A, B, C, D scenario with this. But I want you to really think about the fact that to make this change, you need a true desire to make the change. Because anyone that wants to change their life fast, cool. Fast is essentially a way to get you to watch this video in some way. Because you can change who you are fast, because we just spoke about how to collapse time. That is a real thing. You rewire your brain. You literally become a different version of yourself without having to do years of work. You can become that version in your mind by just experiencing it, right? But fast isn't real life, really. It's not going to happen next week, in 3 months' time, 6 months' time. So things that you need to do in order to make this happen is you need to have the initial shift, choose to have the shift, but you need to maintain that emotional state. You need to maintain that shift that you have by perseverance, by being at the start disciplined, but then forming these habits and persevering and moving through it. When life throws shit at you, we spoke about the external reality throwing people off. When life isn't giving you the results, you need to be able to be someone that has perseverance. You need to be able to persevere and keep moving forward. You need to be willing and being able to push through things that are negative, things that are hard. You can't, when you're making this shift in life, think that this is just going to happen and you're just going to shift to your... Things will get shit. Stress will be thrown at you. Distractions will be thrown towards you. You need to be able to persevere and move through it and push forward. But the cool thing, and a really cool perspective I want to reinforce, I feel like I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm not. When it comes to discipline and habits, when it comes to you making this change and shifting who you are, there's going to be a starting point where you will need to be disciplined. And it might be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where you're going to really use discipline. But it's only a little bit of discipline to form habits. Once you form these habits, we spoke about the pathways and the mind and forming pathways in your brain. Once you form the habits, they're going to be pathways that are in your brain. You form that habit, it's a pathway in your brain. And the cool thing about this is, and I think this is why it's a powerful reinforcement, my apologies, coffee. Once you've formed the pathway, it's permanently in your brain for your rest of your life. It's permanently a pathway in your brain. So you no longer need to rely on discipline, because that is a habit that's been formed. And as long as you repeat that habit, that's going to be automatic. Think about brushing your teeth. It's a habit that you don't even think about doing. You just do it. It's an automatic habit that you do, right? So when you think about the discipline that's required at the start, that's not something that you're going to always have to have. You don't need to always have this discipline and grit. You form the habit through using a bit of discipline to start. That then becomes a pathway that's formed in your brain. And as long as this is why the environment's important, as long as you have an environment that supports that new habit, so you've not got any old triggers in the environment. So think right now, what are things that are holding me to my old self? If you've got a smoking habit, why is there fags in the house? If it's weed as well, why have you got weed in the house? Why have you remove those things from your environment? But once you use discipline to form the habit and your environment supports that new habit, your environment supports that new identity of who you're trying to become, You're going to be able to make this something that's repetitive. And what will happen is when it becomes repetitive, it becomes automatic. And you will start to automatically operate like the version of yourself with these new habits. And what happens off the back of those habits, off of being that version of you? Success, the results that you want. And if you can genuinely stick to the things that I've said in this video, if you can use these tools, if you can stick to aligning your habits with the version of you, the identity, success becomes a byproduct and things happen a lot quicker than you can fucking imagine. One thing that my mentor said to me was, it's not if results come into your life, it's how quickly they come into your life that will blow your mind. Because when I started with my mentor, a little bit of a context around that, when I really started with my mentor, what I was doing every single morning was I was visualizing. I was doing a guided visualization that I've started doing with my clients now. I've done a guided visualization with him every single morning before I started my day at 6 a.m. Guided visualization. And what this was doing before I started my day is I was experiencing the life that I wanted before I went out into the world, into my physical life. And there was things that kept happening, the reticular activating system, the part of my brain. I kept seeing the car, for example, that was in my vision. I kept seeing ways that would allow me to move towards that result. So the visualization that I had for January at the start of the year was to hit 20k in a month, right? The visualization allowed me to experience hitting that target before I even went into my life. So I went from charging £500 for a few months of coaching to charging £1,000 for a few months of coaching. This was at the start of the year. And that allowed me to then hit the target that I was wanting to hit. Within 12 days, I went from making 4k, less than 4k, I think it was actually less than, I think it was between 3 and 4k in December, to making £13,500 in 12 days of January. And this happened so quick. It was like mind-blowing that this happened so quick. And it's because I was rewiring my brain for success at a subconscious level. So I was seeing opportunities with the reticular activating system. I was feeling really good. My nervous system was programmed and wired to feel good and feel aligned with the version of me that had it. So there was no resistance. I was moving forward. I was taking the action. My habits and my metrics that I was ticking off, the actions I was taking, aligned with the version of myself that had that 20k a month result. And what happened? Within 12 days, I had £13,500 coming in. If you told me that at the start of January, or the start of December, before I started the visualizations, I would have told you to go and fuck yourself. There's no way that I can make more than £1,000 a day, more than £1,000 a day at the start of January. I wouldn't even have believed you. But this result happened so quick. My life changed so fast because of the visualization, because of the imagination, because I was becoming the version that had that, now using that imagination and visualization. I didn't have to wait years to go and to make that amount. Some people will take years to make that kind of money within 2 weeks, within 12 days. It's not really, like, from where I come from especially, people don't make £13,500 in 12 days. Just make sure that mic's still on. People don't make that kind of money. And in my head, if I was to think in this like logical, linear fashion of time, I would have to think, right, I need to go to that stage and do this and make that. And well, essentially what happened was I done what I told you in this video. I collapsed time by experiencing that life before I even have seen it in real life and physical reality, using my imagination, and time collapsed and I became that version of myself then. I started to take the action that he took. I started to see opportunities that he would have. And I started to take action on it because I felt good from the visualization. So without repeating myself, because I was rewiring my brain and rewiring my nervous system to become the version of myself that already had the success, when physical reality wasn't showing me that, I didn't care. I had faith that I was that guy. I had faith that that was going to happen. So I kept persevering. I kept moving forward, and the result came in quicker than I could fucking imagine. So that, like, without going on, without rambling, without keep going on, because there's a lot of things that will hold you back. And there's limiting beliefs that will hold you back. And one thing that I've seen recently is, and it was from Neuronknowledge, don't know if anyone's seen him, really good guy, but the biggest limiting belief is the belief that you have limiting beliefs. So this could honestly be a fucking 4-hour video. I feel myself I'm going to sit and fucking talk forever, right? I will just talk for as long as it makes sense. But things like limiting beliefs that are holding you back, they're also things that are going to like prevent you and hold you back. So what you need to get into a position of doing is questioning your beliefs. Like asking yourself, why do I not feel like I can do this? Why am I being negative about making X amount of money? Because if you're like me and you've not came from a lot of money, you might self-sabotage yourself. You might like if you're a CEO and you're like at the top of your business, you might start self-sabotaging yourself because you might not believe that you can make XYZ, or you won't believe that you're the kind of person to do it. You have these self-limiting beliefs. But when you start to question these beliefs, you start to understand that they don't actually really exist. These beliefs, or this belief that you have limiting beliefs, is the biggest limiting belief that you can have. You weren't born with a limiting belief. You were not born into this world with any limitations in your mind. All of these things were formed as you grew up. Society, your parents, going to school, everything shaped who you are right now. And as I said, we could start to go into helping you become aware of like childhood patterns and all these things, but we'll make different videos, we'll have more content around this. And this is essentially the kind of deep one-to-one work that I do with my clients, because everyone is a product of their childhood. Everyone is a product of a script that was written as a 7-year-old version of you, the 12-year-old version of you. 90% of your interpersonal behavior was locked in by 12. And by 18, it's all locked in, your interpersonal behavior. All your behaviors that are interpersonal to you. Locked in by 18. And they're locked in primarily because you're unconscious and unaware of it. So without going into that deeply in this video, there will be things that hold you back. There's deeper work that are like awareness that needs to be gained. But essentially, like practically, that awareness is gained through asking questions. So if you are trying to move forward and you're noticing that you're held back because you don't believe that you can do X, Y, Z, question that belief. That's the advice I would give you in this video without going into it too deep. Question those beliefs. Create awareness around them. Remember what I said? Observe them and detach. Observe the belief, question it, and detach from it. You don't need to listen to it. You don't need to be held back by a belief that you have in your mind. So you might notice a little cut. I just want to add this in. I stopped the video and I thought I want to really reinforce this and add this in. You want to place your focus on the who. You can't take any focus and place it on how things are going to work. Like I mentioned about the external reality, and that's the illusion people fall victim to, is looking at how things are going to play out. All you need to do is put faith in the who. Put faith that as long as you show up as who you want to be or who you need to be, success becomes a byproduct. So you take focus away from the how things are going to play out. That's your only job. Another thing is the beliefs that you have will ultimately shape your reality. So if you believe things are going to be hard, they will be hard. If you believe things are going to be easy, they're going to be easy. The part of your brain that I mentioned, the reticular activating system, not only backs up or filters reality to show you things that are important, but also things that you believe in. So if you believe it's going to be hard, you're going to find evidence that it's hard. The example of a guy that thinks he's unattractive, thinks he's ugly. If he really believes that on a deep level emotionally, if he walks into a restaurant and there's a group of good-looking girls laughing, he's going to think they're laughing at him. Not because they're actually laughing at him, but because his reticular activating system, it filters reality to back up what he believes. It finds evidence to support his beliefs. So that's an example. So if you believe things are going to be hard, they're going to be hard. If you believe things are going to be easy, they will be easy. And there's a book called The Kybalion, really good book, and it speaks about all truths are but half truths, the law of polarity. And it speaks about the law of polarity here, and the reason why I want to mention it is because to one thing, there's always another thing. To bad, there's always good. To light, there's always dark. To hard, there's always easy. And if you believe, right, that things are going to be hard, as I said, they're going to be hard. Just as easy as believing it, they're going to be hard, you can believe that it's going to be easy. So all truths are but half-truths. Believing it's going to be hard isn't fully true. It's one half of the truth. Because the other half of this is that it's easy. So just reinforce, the beliefs that you have will filter reality and become your reality. How you see the world, your perception will be filtered through what you believe in. So be aware of what your beliefs are. We did speak briefly about limiting beliefs there, but you need to be aware that your beliefs will completely directly transfer into your reality and how you experience life. But just to recap, how do you change your life so quick? So you use the visualization and imagination. You can use that in essentially collapse time and experience being that version of yourself now. We've spoke about it. But firstly, you need to create awareness around who that version is, what that life is, so you can actually attach and see yourself doing something. Obviously, we're talking about the physical reality and aligning the habits and actions and behaviours off of the version of you, the identity. We spoke about discipline and habits and how to use discipline to form the habit, and once the habit's formed, it becomes a habit, and then if you repeat that, it becomes automatic, and then you automatically just start operating as a version of you that gets the success as a byproduct. Success becomes a byproduct, and it happens much quicker because I told you a little personal story of how it happened to me. So ultimately, this video has allowed you to understand and create awareness around how you can change so quick that people do not recognize you. And I could keep going on. Honestly, I'm like, but I want to end this video here because there's so many little layers and parts of this that we could keep digging into. But I think this makes sense. I think this is definitely a really good way for you to soak in this type of information, to understand how you make these shifts in your life, how you start to change so quick. And if you are someone that is feeling that you've not got the life that you want, if you're watching this video because you're like, I actually really want to change quick, it's unbelievable how quickly results come into your life when you shift who you are. Told you my personal experience, but this is also happening with my clients. Matthew set a 12-month goal to leave his job and become a coach. Within 6 weeks that happened. Kieran set a 2-year goal, 2-year vision to get his own gym, open up his own gym. Within 8 weeks, he opened it up. He actually had the keys and opened it up. Now he's on to opening up a gym that's triple the size. So these kind of things happen much quicker because my clients and me, you become the version of you that already has it. That's the ultimate thing. You become the version of you that already has the success. It happens in you. It's an internal shift inside you that then allows your external reality to change and shift rapidly. It's almost like you're collapsing time. But until the next YouTube video, I appreciate you. I actually enjoyed sitting in the car. My car, I don't know about you guys, but my car's like it's like my little fucking like safety clothes. I don't know, I feel in the zone when I'm in my car. So this was a good video. I enjoyed speaking to the camera here. Enjoyed having a conversation with you guys and ultimately sharing some wisdom. And I hope it helped whoever's soaking this in. I do appreciate your time and attention. And until the next YouTube video, I'm planning to up this to 2 videos a week to give you guys more knowledge, more wisdom, more awareness, and things that you can apply to your life. But ultimately, I appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next video.